So today we're flying the Micro Drone 3.0. This will be our first flight with this aircraft. Conditions today unfortunately are a bit windy. Somewhat similar to our first flight with the OnagoFly, I would say. Look out. So, gusty wind, calm at times, gusty at times. Let's see how we go. It would appear that I had it reversed, but that's okay. Initial impression just in the first 10-15 seconds of flight, I think it's actually a little easier to control than the OnagoFly. Probably because I'm using a real controller rather than an app-based controller. I can feel where my thumbs are, I can feel where the controls are at all times. I'm not guessing where the controls are. My first flight with the OnagoFly was in virtual controller mode. My second flight with the OnagoFly was in tilt mode, which I thought was easier, but still not as easy as the true stick mode. We're flying this drone without the camera. Come on back, Nathaniel. We're flying this drone without the camera installed because I don't want to have the additional confusion of the weight. And for me, the red props are in the back. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be. We're fighting the wind a little. But again, I would say overall, quite a bit easier to fly than the OnagoFly. Now we have to admit that the wind conditions could be different here. I think the wind is a little stiller than it was with my previous OnagoFly drone flights. I do have the drone, if you're keeping score at home, I do have the drone set on slow mode. It's almost dead calm now. So that's as quickly as it'll move in slow mode. And I think that tells you something right there, that I'm willing on flight, what is this, number 3 with this drone, to push the sticks as far as they'll possibly go and test the limits of the drone's capability right away on off. The ground is not your friend. Get away from the ground. And as with most drones, the throttle is very, very sensitive. It's very difficult to actually hover. You seem to always be either climbing to some degree or sinking to some degree. I'm not yet brave enough to turn around and face myself, which I think might present a problem when I mount the camera, unless, I don't know, if the camera on this drone can be mounted backwards. I'm starting to suspect that the OnagoFly, I showed in one of my earlier videos that the OnagoFly does not have a very quick rate of climb and does not have a very quick rate of descent. And I'm starting to suspect that that was intentional on the part of OnagoFly to keep people from doing this dumb thing that I just did, which is get myself into a vortex ring state. So we have just enough wind where if I give it no input, I'm getting that much. So if you're keeping score at home, if I give it no input, I'm getting that much drag, or that much drift. So there's quite a bit of wind aloft, actually. Let's see if we can cut the power a little. See, what I'm usually having happen to me is when I cut the power just a little, I get a lot of trouble. I'm having to really add, it descends very easily. So the OnagoFly I found climbed and descended about equally. This drone descends quite easily and climbs with a little more difficulty. Just a little. I can tell now based on the amount of throttle I'm having to add that I'm near the end of my battery. Because I'm nearly at 3/4 throttle to climb away from the ground on that last maneuver. The LEDs on this drone are nice and bright. I'm quite hopeful of what would happen should I have to ever, or should I want to ever try flying at night. Come back a little closer here, there, dude. Now, just to keep it from buzzing us. We're really, really, really low on power now. I'm probably 80% of throttle just to stay in the air. And yet it's climbing. So I think that, again, reflects what I said a moment ago. It descends very easily and climbs with some difficulty. Got a little bit of ground effect on that. Kind of got a little boost from my own cushion of air as I was getting near the ground. I've heard others say that this drone is prone to a capacitor problem. I'm hoping I don't encounter that, but so far so good on Flight 1. I do not sense a lot of heat on the battery, because I was using like 80% power just to stay airborne that last flight, so I'm going to really crank it. Looks like the battery recovers a little bit when you let it rest. Again, my classic problem. Oh, actually, I'm doing a pretty good hover there. See, the gusty wind. The wind, at least with this drone, I don't know if maybe even more so than the OnagoFly, the wind really makes a difference, not only in pulling you in the XY direction along the ground, but the wind will really give you and take from you a lot of lift as it gusts. So I'm finding that I'm having to adjust for the wind not only in the XY direction, but also in the Z direction. And I think that I'm doing that more so with this drone than I was with the OnagoFly. More power. So this is flight number, what, 4 or 5? And I think I'm actually starting to get a little brave about it. There again, I was really fighting at the end to try and add power. Okay, we've got no power here. Good. It was easy to control. It fought the wind quite admirably. I think you heard a lot of my comments just during the actual flights themselves. So I would say thumbs up, and I would say that it at least, I'm not going to give a final opinion of Microdrone 3.0 versus OnagoFly at this moment, having flown this less than half the number of times, probably a third the number of times that I've flown the OnagoFly. But I would say that at the very least it's not inferior to the OnagoFly. And I realize some of you may think that that's not saying a lot. I do sense some heat now that we're near the end of the battery. But interestingly, I did not sense heat at the end of the previous flight. So it seems to be, and again, these are initial impressions, it seems to be that perhaps the battery really warms up at the very, very end of its charge, its discharge cycle. So I think overall that I'm very pleased with it, and we'll see. Obviously only time will tell, but no immediate problems with it. And that's the Microdrone 3.0.